Then I found out why he never let me go. There is a specific kind of hatred that lives in your bones, not the kind that fades, not the kind you outgrow, the kind that was placed inside you before you were old enough to ask why. I hated Aries Voss for as long as I could remember. And he hated me right back. That was the only honest thing between us. Till the night of the Voss gala when I walked into that chandelier-lit ballroom in a dress that cost more than most people's rent, and he looked at me from across the room like I was the only thing in it, not with hatred, with something that looked terrifyingly like grief. I should have left. I should have turned around and walked out and never looked back. Instead, I walked toward him, and everything I thought I knew about my life shattered before the night was over. I had not seen Aries Voss in 7 years. 7 years since we were 18, and tearing each other apart at every elite social function our families forced us to attend together. 7 years since the night of the Blackwell Cherry Ball when he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You don't belong in this world, Sophia, you never did." 7 years. And yet the moment I walked into that ballroom, my body knew he was there before my eyes found him, prickling at the back of my neck, a tightening in my chest. Muscle memory of someone you spent years trying to forget. I found him by the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the glittering city below, dark suit, sharp jaw, a glass of whiskey held loosely in one hand like everything around him bored him completely. He was looking directly at me. He had been looking at me since I walked in. I realized that with a jolt, he hadn't been scanning the room. He had been waiting for me. I lifted my chin and crossed the marble floor toward him because I was Sophia Calloway and I did not flinch. Not for anyone, especially not for him. "Voss," I said. "Calloway?" His voice was lower than I remembered, quieter, something careful living underneath it. "You look..." "Don't," I said pleasantly. "Whatever you're about to say, don't." The corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile, almost something sadder than that. "I was going to say you look exactly the same," he said. "Like you're ready for a fight you haven't started yet. With you, always?" He looked at me for a long moment, that dark, unreadable gaze moving across my face like he was searching for something specific. "Dance with me," he said. I laughed, short and sharp. "Absolutely not, Sophia." "The answer is no, Aries. It has always been no. That is the one consistent thing about us." He set his glass down, turned to face me fully, and said quietly, so quietly only I could hear it over the music and the laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses, "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you 7 years ago. Please, just one dance." Something in his voice stopped me, not the words. The underneath of the words. Something raw and desperate, poorly dressed up in his usual composure. I took his hand. I told myself it was curiosity. Only curiosity. I was lying. Narrator, he danced the way he did everything like he owned the space completely and was simply allowing others to exist in it. One hand on my waist. One hand holding mine. Close enough that I could smell him expensive cologne and something warmer underneath it. Close enough that I had to remind myself to stay rigid. To remember every reason I despised this man. There were many reasons. I had a list. "You counting the reasons you hate me?" he said. I blinked. "Excuse me, your jaw does this thing." He glanced down at me. "When you're cycling through your grievances, it always has. You don't know what my jaw does. You've been watching your jaw since we were 11 years old, Sophia. I know every single thing it does." The words landed strangely, too intimate for enemies, too specific for someone who claimed to despise me as thoroughly as I despised him. "What did you want to tell me?" I said, redirecting. Safer, his hand tightened slightly on my waist. 1 degree. Felt it like a current. "Not here," he said. "Not like this. Come with me after. Somewhere we can talk without an audience. You want me to leave a gala with you?" "Yes, Aries. You told me 7 years ago that I don't belong in your world." Something crossed his face, fast and painful. "I know what I said." "Then you understand why I'm not exactly rushing to be alone with you." I said it to protect you. His voice dropped. "I know that makes no sense. I know you have no reason to believe me. But I need you to give me 1 hour and I will explain everything." I searched his face. Aries Voss did not beg. He did not explain himself. He did not look at anyone the way he was looking at me right now, like his composure was held together by the thinnest thread, and I was the only one who could decide whether it snapped. 1 hour, I said, and then I never want to see you again. "Deal," he said, pulling me closer. He took me to the Voss estate. Of course he did. 40 minutes outside the city, up a private road lined with lights, through iron gates that opened before we even slowed down. The kind of wealth that didn't announce itself because it didn't have to. I had been here once as a child. I remembered marble floors and ceilings, so high they made you feel small. I remembered feeling out of place in a way I couldn't articulate, like a painting hung on the wrong wall. Inside, the house was quiet. Staff dismissed for the evening, just the two of us and the sound of our footsteps echoing. Aries poured 2 glasses of wine without asking and handed me one. I took it without arguing. That felt significant somehow. "Sit down," he said. "I prefer to stand." "Of course you do." He set his own glass down and faced me. "Sophia, what do you know about your parents?" I blinked. "What?" "Your parents, Marcus and Diane Calloway. What do you know about them?" "I know they died when I was 4, I said slowly. "I know I was raised by my aunt. I know my father was a self-made businessman and my mother was..." "Your mother was Alina Voss," Aries said, complete silence. "That's not funny," I said. "It's not a joke. My mother's name was Diane Calloway. I have seen photographs, staged photographs, documents that were altered." His voice was steady, careful, like he had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times and was still afraid of it. "Your mother was Alina Voss, my father's younger sister, which makes you..." "Don't." The word came out sharp, panicked. "My cousin," he finished. "By blood, not by upbringing, not by any legal document that currently exists, but by blood, Sophia, you are a Voss." The wine glass was very cold in my hand. "You're lying," I whispered. "I have never lied to you." Something broke through his composure. "Finally, I have kept things from you. I have pushed you away." I have said terrible things to make you stay back, stay safe, stay out of this family's orbit because this family, he stopped. Breathed. Because what was done to your mother should never have happened. And I was 11 years old when I found out, and I was terrified that if you got close enough to this world, what happened to her would happen to you too. I sat down, not because he told me to, because my legs made the decision before my brain caught up. Aries sat across from me, not beside me. Giving me space, like he understood exactly how much I needed it. He told me everything. My mother, Elena Voss, had fallen in love with Marcus Calloway at 22, a man outside their world, outside their wealth, outside everything the Voss family considered acceptable. His grandfather had forbidden the relationship, had threatened Marcus, had ultimately arranged the accident that killed them both when I was 4 years old and left with an aunt who was paid to raise me quietly, far away, under a different name. The Voss empire was built on secrets. My mother was one of them. Your grandfather, I said. My voice sounded very far away. He's still alive. Yes, he killed my parents. Aries looked at me with those dark eyes full of everything he'd been carrying since he was 11 years old. Yes, he said. And when I found out when I was old enough to understand what I'd overheard, you were already in our circles. At every event, every function. Brought back by your aunt who thought she was giving you access to your heritage. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You were so fearless, Sophia. You walked into every room like you owned it. You looked at my grandfather and didn't even flinch, and I was so terrified. That he'd notice me, I breathed. That he'd see Elena in you. His voice cracked, just once. Because I saw her. Every single time I looked at you, I saw her, and I knew if he did too, you pushed me away. Every time you got close. He looked at his hands. Every cruel thing I said, every time I made you feel like you didn't belong, I was trying to keep you invisible to him. The hatred I had carried for 7 years, that bone-deep, lifelong hatred shifted. Not gone, transformed into something I didn't have a name for yet. Something that hurt in a completely different way. You should have told me, I said. I know. I spent 7 years thinking you despised me. I know, he looked up. I'm sorry for every single thing I said. I was 17 and terrified and I made the worst possible choice and I have spent every year since then. He stopped. What? I asked, barely a whisper. He held my gaze. Watching you from a distance, he said quietly, making sure you were safe. Making sure he never looked too closely. Keeping you out of his reach the only way I knew how. I should have left, that was the rational thing. Take this information, process it alone, build a legal case, burn the Voss empire to the ground from the outside. Instead, I was still sitting in this mansion at midnight with the man who had made my adolescence miserable and was now looking at me like I was the most important thing he had ever been responsible for. You said we're cousins, I said, by blood. Yes. Is that? I stopped, recalibrated. Is that why you've always looked at me like what? His voice was very quiet. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to answer, because the way Aries Voss looked at me had never felt like family. Not once, not in 20 years of knowing each other. It had felt like a lot of things, infuriating things, confusing things, things I had aggressively refused to examine, but never that. Sophia. He stood up slowly, crossed the space between us, stopped just close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. I need to tell you one more thing. I don't know how much more I can take tonight. I know. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear with a careful, deliberate touch that stopped my breathing. But this one I've needed to say for 7 years. My heart was doing something irrational. We are connected by blood, he said. Distantly, a shared grandmother. In legal terms, in practical terms, nothing. In this world, nobility married their distant cousins for centuries and nobody blinked. His thumb traced my cheekbone, barely, a ghost of a touch. I'm not telling you that to justify anything. I'm telling you because I know how your mind works and I know you're already calculating. Aries, I pushed you away because I was protecting you, he said. Not because I didn't want you close, never because of that. The space between us was down to inches. I have wanted you close, he said, voice low and rough, since the moment I understood what wanting meant. And I have spent every year since then choosing your safety over that want. Every single time. I searched his face, open, raw, terrifyingly sincere. That's the most infuriating thing anyone has ever said to me, I told him. I know. You let me hate you for years. Yes. When you could have just, yes. His forehead dropped to mine, gentle, exhausted, like he'd been holding something heavy for a very long time and finally set it down. I know, Sophia, I know. My hands, completely without my permission, found the lapels of his jacket. Still furious with you, I whispered. I know that too. This doesn't fix everything. I'm not asking it to. What are you asking? He pulled back just enough to look at me. Those dark eyes finally unguarded. Just don't disappear again, he said. Stay angry, hate me if you need to. Build your case against my grandfather and burn everything down, I'll help you. Just, his jaw tightened. Don't go back to being someone I can only watch from a distance. Something cracked open in my chest, 7 years of hatred. 7 years of a boy making the worst possible choice for what turned out to be the most devastating reason. You're going to have to work very hard, I said softly, to fix this. I know. His hands settled at my waist, careful, asking, I have nothing but time, and you're going to tell me everything, every secret, everything your family buried, everything. Starting with how we take your grandfather down. Something shifted in his expression, that almost smile, but real this time. Warm and sharp in him. There she is, he said quietly. There's the girl who walked into every room like she owned it. I did own it, I said. Apparently literally, he laughed, low and soft and so unexpected that it cracked the last of the tension. I had never heard Aries Voss laugh before. It turned out to be the most dangerous thing about him. We stayed up until 4 a.m, documents spread across the dining table. Photographs. Financial records Aries had been quietly collecting for years. Evidence of what his grandfather had done to my parents, evidence of buried assets, evidence of a name that had been deliberately erased from every official record. Elena Voss, my mother, and underneath her name, on a document dated 30 years ago, her daughter's name, not Sophia Calloway, Sophia Voss. I stared at it for a long time. There's something else, Aries said. I looked up. He was watching me with that careful expression again. Like he was bracing. The Calloway estate, he said. The inheritance your aunt managed. The money your father supposedly left you. What about it? It isn't your father's money. He slid a document across the table. It's your mother's, hidden under your father's name to keep it out of my grandfather's reach. Your mother knew. Before she died, she knew he was coming for them. She spent the last months of her life moving every asset she had into untouchable accounts under a name he'd never search. I looked at the numbers. My breath left me. Sophia, Aries leaned forward. You are not the girl your grandfather cast out. You are not the charity case who scraped her way into elite circles on charm alone. His eyes held mine. You are the sole heir to Elena Voss's personal fortune, which means you own 30% of the Voss Group, I said slowly, reading the document, the numbers rearranging themselves into something enormous. She left me 30%. Which your grandfather has been illegally drawing dividends from for 26 years, Aries said, because he thought you'd never know, because you were hidden away under the wrong name in the wrong city, and he made sure you'd never have a reason to look. The dining room was very quiet. I sat back in my chair, and for the first time in my life, the feeling I'd carried everywhere, that low, persistent hum of you don't quite belong, you're always one step behind, you're always proving yourself, made complete sense. I wasn't behind. I had been robbed. He took everything from me, I said. Yes. My parents, my name, my inheritance, my entire identity. Yes. I looked at Aries across the table. This man who had known since he was 11, who had carried this alone, who had made himself my enemy to keep me invisible and safe and breathing. We're going to take it all back, I said. I know. Everything, every penny, every share. I want him to watch it happen. Aries looked at me with those dark eyes full of 7 years of guilt and grief and something else, something that had survived all of it. Quietly, stubbornly, the way certain things do. I'll be right beside you, he said, every step. I reached across the table, placed my hand over his. His jaw tightened, eyes dropping to our hands, then back to my face. Sophia. I know, I said, it's complicated, I know it's a lot, I know we have a long way to go. I held his gaze, but you said don't disappear. Yes. Then I'm not disappearing. I squeezed his hand once. I'm just getting started. She spent her whole life feeling like she was on the outside of something she couldn't name. Too polished to be ordinary. Too uncertain to feel like she belonged. She thought it was a flaw. It wasn't. It was a missing piece. And the boy who knew where it was chose to protect her with his silence, instead of heal her with his truth. Was he wrong? Completely. Was he also the only person who had spent 20 years making sure she stayed alive long enough to find out who she really was? Also, yes. That's the thing about the people who hurt us most. Sometimes the reason behind the wound is more complicated than the wound itself. Sophia Voss didn't just get her name back that night. She got her fury, her power, her birthright, and the boy who had loved her badly for years finally had the chance to love her right. This has been Storyverse. I'll see you in the next story. And trust me, the next one will hit even harder than this.